We don't have a flag, but lizard is kind of our symbol because we wish we could grow apart like lizards. It's kind of my emotional support, iguana. Hi everyone, my name is Shape. I am a man. I thought I was a woman. For 10 years, I started transitioning in my early 20s. Initially, I was just gender bending man. I would wear gender non-conforming clothes when I went to college. I grew up in Eastern Europe, but when I went to college in America, I was finally able to wear things that I wanted to wear, which is express myself more feminine. But shortly after going to college, people started asking me my pronouns. And I thought it was weird. I knew I was a man, I was a gay man. And as I started doing research, I started questioning my gender and thinking that I was a woman trapped in a man's body. So quickly, I have OCD, so quickly I got obsessed with transition. Went to Fenway House in Boston, was able to get on hormones rather quickly. Hormones messed me up actually. I became more depressed, more sad, more suicidal. But I attributed it to being still in the wrong body, that I needed to like complete my transition. So I ended up getting facial feminization surgery, which is, looking back at it, it sounds sexist. Like, what is facial feminization? Women come in different shapes and colors and sizes. And shortly after that, I got approved for sex reassignment surgery. And I was only approved in 12 visits.
Is it easy to get these surgeries scheduled?
It was relatively easy for me. There was absolutely no pushback by therapists. They completely like ignored or mental comorbidities I had. I'm definitely on a spectrum. I have ADHD. I have severe childhood trauma. So I have internalized homophobia. They completely didn't even push back at all. They affirmed me, and gave me letters for the surgeries. I was excited.
Why do you think that is? Do you think the doctors just want to make money, or do you think there's a fear of saying, "Oh no, you
I think
we
there's
have
a
to
couple.
respect everyone's
I think
decisions"?
I think there's a couple of things at play. One thing, radical trans activists have been pushing for affirmation only model, and Fenway Health in Boston was one of the hospitals kind of to pioneer that affirmation only model. So any pushback often considered transphobic. In countries like Canada, if you try to give people a little bit of a pushback and ask them like, why do you think you're a woman? What do you think, how do you think woman feels? Because a lot of people I feel like a woman. Nobody asked me ever those questions. Nobody said, maybe you have internalized homophobia, because I grew up in a very homophobic family where I was brainwashed from early on that gay is bad and sinful.
But what country did you grow up in?
I rather not reveal it because a lot of my family that's still in that country don't know that I'm gay, and my parents still live there. So, but I grew up in a Muslim family, and I was always told that attraction to men as a man is bad. So the minute I realized that I could become a woman possibly, I just latched onto that idea. Like, I really wanted to be a woman because I wanted to escape my homosexuality, because I was so brainwashed by my parents and society that I am not supposed to be attracted to men as a man. So the minute I came across that there was a way to possibly change my sex, I latched onto that idea, immediately. And therapists never tried to help me tackle my childhood trauma. My parents had been verbally abusive to me as a kid. My mom was very disappointed that I wasn't masculine like other boys and I was short. So she always compared me to other masculine boys that I had in my class, and I could just tell that she wasn't like proud of me just because of the way I am. And she kept on trying to butch me up, tried to give me to karate classes. She even gave me to classes where I had to do like stretching, try to grow taller. So, and I got a lot of abuse at school as well. People just kept on calling me sissy, all the regular things effeminate gay men, gay boys go through. So that kind of early on sent a message to me that I must not be a real man because of the way I am. And it's kind of hard for me to talk about right now. So I was trying to escape my homosexuality and my my maleness, I guess, because I felt like I couldn't measure up to other men. Because there's this rigid stereotypes of a man in society that you have to be tall, masculine, act certain way. And I just felt like I could never measure up to that. So the closest point of reference were women. I felt safer around them. I felt like they wouldn't be bullying me, they wouldn't be attacking me, because most of bullying and attacking came from other men. And that made me feel like I had more kinship with women. So that was another factor that kind of pushed me into it. But back to why it's affirmation only and why people are getting fast-tracked to transition pipeline. It's number one, as I said, therapists are just afraid to practice anything other than affirmation because then they're labeled as transphobic. In Canada, it's considered conversion therapy if you try to push back a little bit. Also, there is a lot of money to be made from insurances through this hormone therapy, affirmation surgeries. For example, when I was cleared for the surgery, I know this sounds ridiculous, but nobody even sat me down and told me that you're gonna have to take hormones for the rest of your life. I was stupid, I was young. A lot of trans women and trans communities think that estrogen is just for looks. But there's so much more to it, you know, it definitely changes the way you feel, the way you think. If you're a man getting castrated with estrogen, and in my case, I was a gay man, it actually contributed more to my depression. So yeah, and there is now a lot of money to be made from these affirmation surgeries because in Massachusetts, for example, pretty much all the surgeries are covered at this point. I believe it's the same in California. And people are getting the surgeries and hormones younger and younger. And I transitioned to live stealth because I wanted to just blend in, get away from everyone, and just be left alone because I just feel disappointed in general by society. That was my goal with transition. But as I saw that so many people were transitioning younger and younger, getting surgeries younger and younger, and also what was happening with the whole like Leah Thomas situation, trans people competing in women's sport and winning them. I just felt like I had to say something because actually after I had a surgery, I spiraled into severe depression. And trans community was gaslighting me and telling me that it was a post-op depression, that it's normal, and I have to kind of like put new goals ahead of me because transition was my goal and now it's kind of not there anymore. Like I've been transitioned, but depression never went away. And actually I started having complications right after I had the surgery, no matter how much I dilated. And for those of you who don't know what dilation is when you get neovagina, you stick like firm objects inside of yourself to keep things open. But what they don't really explain to people is that your body treats it as a wound, and as horrible as it sounds, that's just reality.
So you have had breast augmentation
and sex reassignment surgery.
and you had your penis and testicles removed?
Yeah, I had my penis and testicles removed. I had penile inversion surgery. That's when they slice up your Johnson and shove it up inside of you, try to create a tunnel. But the point is, it doesn't have the same qualities as natural cis, I don't like using that word, but natural vagina would have. So you kind of have, your body's natural instinct is to heal it. So you always have to dilate. And one thing that I realized later on, that all the surgeons have a different dilation schedule, which is like a big red flag. How come the surgeries have been done for years, but there is still like every surgeon has their own dilation schedule, which is like, why is this not more scientific by now, more universal? But all this started coming to me later, you know, as I started going more down, you know.
So now you regret doing these things?
Yeah, I regret basically just taking estrogen because it made me confused about my biological reality, because before taking estrogen, when I just socially transitioned, which was I was just cross-dressing.
But it wasn't just the estrogen, you had breasts.
Yeah, but I got breasts after estrogen. Like I was on estrogen for a year.
Right, but you also chopped off your...
I did, yeah. Unfortunately, I regret it. I missed my Johnson, one of the biggest mistakes of my life. But I think not even just the surgery, I just regret ever identifying as a woman, because I believe transgender movement is actually regressive. It's so ridiculous to say that, oh, you're a woman just because you have long hair and you have boobies, you know? It's like men, I date I date bigger guys, over 200 pounds. A lot of them have breasts bigger than mine. So it's like, it's very aggressive and kind of sexist to say that, oh, now I'm a woman because I'm wearing a skirt and have longer hair. Looking back at it, it sounds ridiculous. So yeah, I just regret to even being part of this movement. That's why, for years anyways, I struggled. I kept on having more revisions, trying to fix, because I wanted to be able to connect with another person again and have sex the way I imagined it was supposed to be in my head, because I was so homophobic. I wanted straight sex. So I ended up having more revisions. I ended up getting colon vaginoplasty, where they cut out like a piece of your colon and try to create like more of a tunnel in you. But that failed as well, and actually upon revision from that surgery, I ended up with a colorectal fistula, which was completely scary. Thankfully, I didn't have to wear a colostomy bag. After that, I got very, very depressed. I wanted to, check out of this reality because I just felt like my life was over. But then I no longer trusted any therapist, because obviously this was actually the first time I ever gotten any kind of mental health help was when I came to US and went to gender clinic. And that's when, I got prescribed hormones. After that, I kind of didn't trust therapists anymore, so I turned to psychedelics. I did ayahuasca, I did all that, trying to kind of find meaning in my life, which helped for a while. Depression kept on creeping in. And that's when I started slowly realizing that, wait a minute, this transition, this whole thing didn't bring me the trans joy people talk about. It didn't bring me the gender euphoria people talked about. If anything, it magnified my gender dysphoria, because when I was just wearing whatever gender bending clothes, I was confident in my manhood. Yes, I was a feminine man, but I could go to a male bathroom. And sometimes men would take a double take, is that a man, is that a woman? And it kind of actually made me happy to kind of make people confused a little bit. But after I started transitioning, it just became this OCD, am I passing? Can people tell I'm a man? Can people tell I'm a woman? So it just made things worse for me. It didn't solve any of my issues. It made things worse for me. It pulled me away from my family and friends, because it was just easier to cut people out and explain to them the whole transition process. And I'm kind of going through that again with detransition. It's almost easier to just not talk to people than trying to tell them, hey, by the way, I'm a man. No, it's just people are confused. They're like, oh, how are you a man? You look like a woman. But I just want people to know that woman is not a look. It's kind of offensive to women. So it's just so weird that at this point, it came to the point in the timeline where if men wear a little bit of makeup or do something that's not stereotypically manly, people just assume you're transitioning or you're non-binary. It's almost like this movement erased androgynous people, it erased gender nonconformity. Trans is literally medicalization of gender nonconformity. And trans activists are always saying that, oh, trans people have been around for years, we won't have trans genocide and all that. It's no, what we had for years and centuries were gender nonconforming people, cross-dressers, eunuchs. Trans only, it's a label. I personally don't believe anybody is born trans. I believe some people struggle with body dysmorphia, gender dysphoria. That's another thing. Psychiatrists never told me that I possibly have body dysmorphia. And as I started getting this feminization surgeries, I guess, getting breast work done, face work done, I still wasn't feeling sexy. I was still not feeling comfortable in my own body. I still felt ugly. And only recently when I went to a new therapist last year, I realized I had body dysmorphia, that I still don't feel comfortable in my own body. That feeling that I confused for being in the wrong body, it was because I had body dysmorphia. I grew up chubby. I grew up feeling ugly, feeling less. And that was really a software issue. And these people just literally sold me a hardware fix. Took my insurance money, took years of my life, took my health. I have osteoporosis now because of not having enough hormones in my body for years. I just got back on testosterone last year and finally got some of my sex drive back because I literally felt dead inside for years. And nobody even told me, hey, even if you're having the surgery, you need both hormones in your body, because every person needs some estrogen and some testosterone. Just males tend to have average male has more testosterone. As males get older, testosterone level drops, so they become more emotional, all that. So it's all just kind of like averages and natural biological processes. So my care has been completely mishandled all the way from like therapist up until even now. Right now, I want to have my breasts removed because of my osteoporosis. It's very painful to have this like large, heavy breasts, but I can't even get any help. Like I don't want to spend $8,000 in recession to have my breasts removed, and I don't even know. A lot of detransitioners are struggling getting insurance coverage for reversal surgeries, and to be honest, I want public to know that in certain cases, full detransition is impossible. I've been in the trans community for a while, and I've talked to some detrans men who attempted phalloplasty after vaginoplasty, and it was horrible. Like one man got phalloplasty, which like they had to take skin from somewhere in his body.
And what is that?
It's when they take a skin from your body and try to construct a phallus, a new penis, I guess, or a penis lookalike, because you can never get it back the way it was. So they take it's multiple surgeries. So they take like skins from somewhere on your body. They put like a penile implant. They put like testicular implants. They take tissue, usually from inside of your mouth, try to lengthen your urethra. Trans men who attempt to get bottom surgery go through something similar. And I know one trans man who had it done, and he said it was the most painful surgery he had, even more painful than vaginoplasty. So he actually had to go back to the doctor and has the phallus taken apart. I'm not laughing. I'm just like, it's my stress relief, and put the skin back where it came from. So it's very horrific surgeries. I think general public just thinks that surgeries have been done for decades, so they must be safe. But the truth of the matter is there is really no studies showing that specifically sex reassignment surgery improves anybody's mental health. In fact, there's a Swedish study showing that within 10 years after sex reassignment surgery, people become more suicidal and cancel themselves. But that's all those studies that contradict the mainstream narrative of happy transitioners have just kind of been labeled as transphobic and pushed away. In terms of hormones, there is no studies comparing it to placebo to even get an idea, is it any better than placebo? Usually when you do drug studies, you do compare it to a placebo, but somehow there is like no studies comparing it to estrogen. In terms of testosterone has amazing antidepressive properties. So when I went on testosterone last year, I definitely got my mental health improved a little bit, but it's also traumatic getting your sex drive back and not having functional genitals, Before transition, when I took estrogen, before taking estrogen, I was comfortable with my penis, but within a year after taking estrogen, I started hating my penis. I got convinced that it was just like, it needs to go, it doesn't belong on my body. Every time somebody saw it and looked at it, I was getting very dysphoric, very kind of annoyed. So I literally went from being okay with my genitals to hating it and wanting it off my body after a year of estrogen. And I never thought like I would want to, top someone. But now with testosterone, certain desires are coming back, and it's kind of traumatic. And I don't know what to do because it's almost like it brings more attention to my genitals. And in a way, it also makes me sad. So eventually I may be forced into like hormonal retransition, whatever that means, simply because it's just so traumatic to be on testosterone.
You still seem to be trying to be a woman? Because with your makeup and lipstick and hair.
I do get mistaken a lot for a woman, and the way I look at it, I don't do pronouns. So if you see me as a woman, she, her, to me, going ahead and correcting someone, being like, oh, I'm a man, call me he, him, it's just stupid. It's almost the equivalent of non-passable trans women that are walking around where everybody can clearly see it's a man. And they're just militant about using she, her. You just have to be understanding that all of the society is not gonna affirm what you think in your mind. And it's completely ridiculous that in Canada, for example, right now, you can go to jail for misgendering someone. And I know that some people may be purposely misgendering somebody to make fun of them or something, but some people just don't pass, They just will never pass, no matter how many surgeries they do. And to all the trans people watching this, if you're transitioning, just be careful. Like, don't trust surgeons blindly. Do your own research. The informed consent that they give you for surgeries and hormones, be careful. Read it very carefully. The surgeries, yes, they'll tell you these things can go wrong, but if there's no probabilities next to things going wrong, is this really an informed consent? Yes, a plane could crash right now into this building, but what are chances of that? And there's literally no studies on the complication rates and on satisfaction rate from vaginoplasty in trans women. So yeah, just be careful. If you have relatives that are planning to transition, try to get them good therapists. I'm not saying that medical transition can not help anyone, but it should be like a last step because a lot of the things are reversible.
And what's your relationship like with your family?
Honestly, my homophobic family, initially they were against transition, but they took more of a religious spin on it. They were like, oh, it's against Allah, and you're gonna go to hell, blah, blah, blah. But then when I transitioned and my relationships with men started appearing more heteronormative to them, they became more accepting. And
What was your childhood like?
it was pretty traumatic, I definitely had a lot of bullying, both at school and from my parents, because as I said, they just didn't like the fact that I was naturally feminine. And natural femininity is something that's been around for centuries.
Well, see, like there's many different, there are men who are gay, there are men who are effeminate, there are men who are gay.
Yes.
There are cross-dressers, there are people that are they're transgender, but they still have penises. Then there are transgender who
transsexuals, I guess.
Transsexual, whatever. So.
And I think that's a problem because a few years ago, like a decade ago, there was more of distinction, but now a lot of people are falling under that umbrella, just automatically. And trans community is pushing for even the idea that you don't need to have gender dysphoria to be trans, which is crazy because original trans activists fought for this to be classified as mental disorder. So it could be classified as medical condition and could be treated by treatments that are covered by insurance. So saying that this is not a mental disorder is completely crazy. If somehow something inside of you, whether it's innate, whether it's induced by society or traumatic childhood, wants you to emulate stereotype, and stereotype being a keyword of an opposite sex, it's 100% is a mental disorder. And saying otherwise just sounds ridiculous. And again, I just feel like a lot of people are gonna get hurt with this affirmation only model. People are not given proper mental health help. There is detrans women in my community that are missing their breasts, and they had double mastectomies when they were underage, pretty much. They haven't even had a chance to grow into their womanhood. I even feel like, even though I was 18 plus, I feel like I didn't get a chance to explore my manhood, and grow into my manhood, realize that like a lot of my desire to transition was to fit in, because felt like when I was wearing gender nonconforming clothes, I was getting weird stares. People were treating me like a creep. But once I started passing more, I could wear whatever I want, and people didn't bother me, they didn't give me dirty looks, they didn't make fun of me. But I don't think that in the future, right now what's happening with the trans kids are literally castrating young gender nonconforming boys. Just because the boy wants to play with a Barbie or wear a skirt and run around at 2, 3, that doesn't mean anything. This kid grow out to be a drag queen, this kid just be going through a phase. It's completely ridiculous that just because boy wants to play with Barbies and wear a skirt and run around at 2 or 3 years old, parents immediately think, oh, they have a trans child on their hands, so they must castrate him with Lupron by the age 11, to make sure the kid doesn't go through puberty. It's completely ridiculous. They're castrating this kid for a look. They want to make sure that his voice doesn't drop. They want to make sure that he can become a woman lookalike, but this kid gonna lose his sexual functionality. The head of WPAS, which is organizations that set standards for transgender care, released an article a few months ago saying that all the M2Fs, which is boys that are saying they're girls and being castrated with puberty blockers, they will never know what orgasm is like because they never had testosterone in their body. When I had no testosterone in my body for years, it was so hard to achieve orgasm. I wasn't even thinking about sex. My sexual desires were completely gone. So how can kids opt out of orgasmability, which is a natural human biological function, once they don't even know what it is? I think it's completely unethical. I don't know what the good solution to this is, because a lot of parents are being emotionally blackmailed by trans activists because they're being told that if you don't transition your child, they'll be at high likelihood of canceling themselves, which is complete emotional blackmail. I feel like trans movement took away the diversity we used to have, such as cross-dressers and, transvestites, all those, now it's all just kind of falls under the same umbrella. And it literally erased what drag is, because now we have trans women competing on RuPaul's Drag Race. It erases woman in a way as well, what woman means. It erases homosexuality. A lot of people, from what I realize in the trans community, have a lot of other mental issues that were not resolved, and they saw transition as a way to kill a version of themselves that was traumatized. But the truth of the matter, your issues are still up here. No matter how much you're modifying your body, your trauma doesn't go away. You still have to go within yourself, whether it's with the help with non-biased good therapists, whether it's psychedelics, whether it's talk therapy. Different things work for different people, but your problems are not going to go away just because you transition. And yeah, that's the conclusion I came down to. But again, I feel very stuck. I don't feel like full detransition is possible for me. So for me, detransition is more of a state of mind, just coming to realizations that I've been pretty much lied to, that I'm not a woman. And my blueprint was male, and I destroyed it through surgeries and hormones. Yeah.
What would you say is the most important thing you've learned in all of this journey of yours?
Don't trust big pharma. Do your own research. Stop being radical. I think one of the problems in society right now, people are getting radicalized because radical ideas get a lot of attention. So just be able to hear like the other side and see where those people are coming from. And I do believe that truth is somewhere in the middle. And seeing things black and white has gotten humanity in a lot of trouble. And gender exists on a spectrum. Feelings change, but biological reality doesn't change. And being medical patient for life and slave to big pharma is not fun. And it just takes time to find out who you really are. It takes years to realize who you are, to grow stronger. And making permanent life decisions, permanent body modifications earlier in your timeline, it's a really, really bad idea.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I
wish
appreciate
you
it.
lots of luck with your detransition.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.